Well, this is going to be a very fun video because in today's video, and I have my notes because we're talking about a bunch of math here, we're going to be comparing the 2022 Plus, the VB Subaru WRX, with the VA WRX, which is the 15 to 21 WRX. And we're going to specifically be looking at which is the faster car. And we're going to do this instead of having a drag race where there's tons of variables and all that kind of stuff and potentially different setups and all of that. We're strictly doing math here. And if you don't believe me, I bet you by the end of this video, you're not only going to know which is the faster car, you're going to know exactly by how much, power numbers, tuning information, and then cost. So you can understand how much it costs to make certain power with each vehicle, why each vehicle is better than the other, and the percentage difference in the wheel horsepower they make and the wheel torque that they make. Now for this video, we're going to specifically be looking at these cars not stock for stock, because if you care about what they make from a power perspective, you can go and Google their 0 to 60 times, which are very public and very publicly tested. But we're going to talk about their tune numbers. So we're going to be looking at stage 1 tunes and stage 2 tunes between each of these WRXs, and we're going to be comparing outputs and their delivery from a power per pound of the vehicle, which is the most important aspect, because we're not just talking about power, we're talking about how much horsepower and torque per pound the vehicle weighs, because these vehicles do not weigh the same. And then we're going to talk about percent difference and how much it costs to actually make that. So again, you will know more about these cars at the end of this video, and you're going to realize that math defines all of this, and it's not a means of perspective. There's math that you can do, and it will tell you which is the faster car for less money. So we're going to start by caveating that we're going to be looking at Cobb's OTS tunes. Now, a lot of you guys are going to roll around hearing that, but the reason I'm doing that because Cobb creates standardized tunes. They are arguably the most used, the most tested, and the highest collectors of data with these cars, with Subarus. They've done the most testing, and we can see reliable numbers warranted by the organization that certifies everyone tuning them. So tuners even have to learn from Cobb at some level to tune these vehicles. So they are kind of the governing body, let's just say, for this video, but we also have the most data around it, so we can look at those. And although you can make more power building these cars, we're going to talk about stage 1 and 2 specifically, because once you get past the I'm going to spend a ridiculous amount of money, one, you're doing it because you love the platform. You can make more power in other platforms spending a lot of money. And two, if you're spending a lot of money on modifying these cars, obviously the results are going to be very individualized for whatever you're looking to do with the car. So stage 1 and stage 2 are the most common tunes that you as a consumer are probably going to run in your car. So the 2022 Subaru WRX weighs 3,297 pounds. The 15 to 21 WRX weighs 3,267 pounds. We're going to be looking at peak wheel horsepower and peak wheel torque in foot-pounds and horsepower. And we're going to be going through each of these cars. So in stage 1, and we're going to go car by car here, stage 1, the 2022 WRX makes 293 horsepower and 310 foot-pounds of torque. For the VA WRX, stage 1, you're making 263 horsepower and 284 foot-pounds of torque, pound-feet, foot-pounds. Already a substantial difference. Then we're going to go to stage 2. The stage 2 VB WRX makes 327 horsepower and 363 foot-pounds of torque. The stage 2 VA WRX makes 293 horsepower and 302 pound-feet of torque. Now, to caveat, to make stage 2 on a 2022 WRX, and we'll talk about this a little bit later from a cost perspective, we're assuming stage 1 for both of these cars have no aftermarket parts, no intakes, and we're going to assume for stage 2 for the VB WRX, we have an intake, a charge pipe, and a top-mount intercooler. That's what Cobb requires you to have a stage 2 OTS tune. And for the stage 2 VA WRX, you have to have an intake, a charge pipe, an electronic boost control solenoid, and a top-mount intercooler. Now, granted, we're not including a J-pipe, which is where you make a lot of power on the VA WRX, but the same goes with a mid-pipe on a VB WRX. So we're going to leave those out because they make similar power gains when you go to the aftermarket and ProTune. Now, we're going to look at the pounds, or the horsepower per pound, and the torque per pound for each of these cars. So for stage 1, the 2022 WRX makes 0.0886 horsepower per pound and 0.09402 torque per pound, where the VA WRX makes 0.0805 horsepower per pound and makes 0.08692 torque per pound. Now, the difference there is that in stage 1, per pound, so we've now equalized these cars to the point where they're on an even playing field, right? We're looking at the per pound numbers of power and torque, which is what's so important here, because the per pound gives us a solid understanding of these cars on equal playing fields, right? We separate the difference in weight, we separate all the other factors. There is a 10.3% difference in power in stage 1 and an 8.1% difference in torque in stage 1 between these two cars. So you quite literally, with no parts, just an OTS tune, a Cobb access port, you're gonna make 10.3% more power and 8.1% more torque. Those are substantial numbers, especially when you consider that a stage 1 tune on an STI makes like 3% more power. Now in stage 2, you're gonna make 0.09918 horsepower per pound for the 2022 WRX and 0.1101 torque per pound for the VB, where on the VA you're going to make 0.08968 horsepower per pound and 0.09243 torque per pound. Now, if you look at the percent difference again, this is on an equal playing field. In stage 2, the VB WRX will make 10.5% more power than the stage 2 VA WRX and 19.1% more torque than the VA WRX. That is substantial. So when you really get down to it and you want to start tuning these cars, you are going to consistently make more than 10% more power at any stage on the VB WRX with the FA24 engine, and you're going to make between 8 and 20% more torque before really getting into the fun zone with just OTS tunes. Now this is where it gets more interesting. We know now, especially just WRX to WRX, where the few other factors that make these cars different when you actually think about 0 to 60 time are fairly negligible. We now know that yes, the VB WRX, when put under the gun with an access port, it's a faster car. It's irrefutable. Pound for pound, it's a faster car. This is where it gets fun. Your cost to make the power. Stage 1, it's $50 more, and these are averaged costs because I'm gonna average some used parts in here. I'm just looking at the average, what the average person pays for these parts. So it's gonna be a little bit averaged. We're only taking a little bit off for used parts, so it barely adjusts our new part cost. Stage 1 for the VB is gonna cost you $650 for the average access port. Stage 1 on the VA WRX will only cost you $600, so $50 difference. But the stage 2 is where it also gets interesting. Both are gonna cost $2 grand, even with the extra parts, because the VA parts are a little bit cheaper. With that said, it costs the same to tune these two cars, but you can make significantly different results with the two cars. Pound for pound, the FA24, the VB WRX is the faster car. The only last thing to consider is that you can make pretty good power with the VA WRX, and you're gonna spend $10,000 or $12,000 less on the car itself if you're just looking to get into the platform itself. But if you're thinking about strict power, you're gonna make more power with this car, with this engine. If you're thinking about having fun, the FA24 engine is the way to go. We just went pound for pound. You know the differences. Have fun. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you wanna see me compare this car with other things or get more in depth, let me know in the comment section below. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you guys on the next one.